Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily Quiz for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 22nd August today, and in this session we are going to discuss few very important questions with respect to the current affairs topics which were in the newspaper today. And also we are going to discuss few questions with respect to your static portion, and we will discuss few previous year questions in this session. This initiative, this video is very much important for you if you are an IAS aspirant, if you are an if you are aspiring to become a civil servant. This video becomes very much important for you. It is very rarely you will watch such videos on YouTube channels. Usually what YouTubers do, what the teachers on YouTube do, they will take up a single approach. They will either discuss the current affairs only, or they will discuss the daily quiz only. But here we are connecting you with every aspect of your preparation. We are forming questions from the current affairs which are relevant for you. We are forming questions on the static portion which will help you prepare well, which will help you revise your static portion, and we are also discussing few previous year questions in this session. So I would like to request you guys, please, if you are watching this video, please open your notebook and start writing these questions. Start making your notes from these questions. Develop your own question book before your exam. When your exams would be when exams would be very much near to you, it will be easy for you to revise your current affairs from those questions. It would give you the confidence that you had prepared well. So I would like to request you guys, please do open your notebook and start start noting these questions. Or if you are lazy like me, then take a screenshot of these questions. At least develop your own question bank before your exams. It will definitely help you prepare well. It will boost your confidence when you will enter your exam hall. So before we start our discussion, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe the channel. Every day we work so hard on these videos. When you subscribe, it would be like a appreciation for us. It would be a appreciation from your side towards us. It will boost our confidence when you will subscribe this channel, when you will like the video, and when you will share your comments. And also please do write in the comments what else should we bring in this video. We will definitely consider your thoughts with respect to this, with respect to your preparation. So without any delay, let's look at the topics first here. Before we start to discuss, I would assume that you had already read your newspapers. If you had not read your newspapers yet, then don't worry. We'll give a little touch on your news articles itself, so that you will be very much able to connect these questions with respect to the articles which were in the newspaper. The first article which was in the newspaper, which is very much important for you, is moral pressure and human rights compliance. We are going to discuss some different ways by which this human rights can be, human rights could be respected in different countries. Then after that, we will see the another important article which was in the newspaper is power play. Different hydroelectricity power plants in Sikkim area. Last night we discussed how there was landslides in the Tista River region, where a building of power plant was damaged. We will discuss about it. After that, we will discuss about the impact of imports, how it impact of imports of medicines or medication, or how does it impact, how does it weaken the Indian pharma when we import medicines from abroad. When we import medicines, how does it impact the Indian pharma industry. After that, we will discuss the need for environmental regulations. A single body, should there be a single body which will control all the organizations, all the organization which deal with the environment? Should there be a single body? We will discuss about it. Then after that, we will discuss about the rapid increase of e-commerce and its impact on retail and customers, retail shops. We will discuss it. And after that, we will discuss the lightning strikes, about that. We will discuss it a little bit in detail and form questions on these articles, and see how an examiner can form a question for you guys while reading these articles in the newspaper today. Now let's start with the first itself. The article itself says moral pressure and human rights compliance. If we are living in that time where different countries are in right now. Different countries are in war. Different countries have different problems. There are many countries where a dictatorship is still going on. There are many countries where they, for namely sake, they are democracies, but they are violating the human rights in their countries. So what could be the approach of the organizations? What should be the approach of the UN? What should be the approach of the developed countries? What should be the approach of those countries who believe in democracy with respect to these human rights violations happening in different parts of the world? you know if we will see, in this, there are different ways to tackle this. There are different ways, mentioned according to the article. There are different ways to tackle this human rights violation, especially when a country within its own borders are violating human rights. Then it becomes very much difficult for the another country to control it, for the organizations to control it. In fact, if a country is violating human rights violation in another country, then it becomes little bit easier for the organization, especially United Nations, to to interfere in this matter. But when a country is violating the human rights in its own territories, then it becomes very much difficult to to tackle this issue. But there are few ways mentioned in the article itself, by which these human rights violations can be tackled. For example, there are countries, usually we hear sanctions from UN, we hear sanctions from USA. Sanctions can be imposed on those countries. By this way we can tackle this human rights violation in a particular country. But right now this has not been that much successful. We can take the example of North Korea. There are huge human rights violations happening in there. They are not, the people there are not allowed to leave the North Korea. There are many sanctions on them, but still that has not gained, these sanctions had not stopped North Korea while doing those human rights violation. And also there is another way by which this issue can be addressed, that is act of naming and shaming. You can go to UN and name those acts which the countries do. For example, right now different China, they are violating human rights in Tibet. They are violating human rights against Uyghur Muslims in their own territories. So what we can do, we cannot go for the military actions there, but we can name them on the highest platforms, like UN. We can name them, we can shame them there. This can be also a method by which we can tackle this. But lately it has seen that this is not also that much successful, because they are still doing all this stuff. Similarly, the another way is the military actions, like the USA has done in different countries. But it has seen that while doing these military actions, it has more worse impact than than solving the issue itself. It leads to the civil war in the country. We had seen in different countries, we had seen in Iraq, we had seen in Afghanistan. There were military actions, but it has led to the different more worse conditions, especially in Libya and other countries. So all these, these were the ways which were mentioned in the article itself, by which we can tackle this human rights violations in different countries, especially in those countries in which the violation is happening within their own borders. So these are the ways. With respect to this, let us this article itself is not that much relevant for your prelims exam. A mains based question can be asked from this article, but still, there are human rights violation, and we have United Nations Human Rights Violation Council. So let's talk about that. This article may give the examiner idea about United Nations Human Rights Violation Council. So let's see how he can form a question on this article. Let's have a look at the question. The question says, which of the following statements regarding the United Nations Commission on Human Rights are correct? So here are the articles mentioned. Let's have a look at it. The first statement: the UNCHR, which is United Nations Commission on Human Rights, was established in 1946 as a subsidiary body of the United Nations Economic and Social Council. 100% correct, nothing wrong with it. Second, the UNCHR was responsible for drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 100% correct, nothing wrong with it. Third, The UNCHR, which is United Nations Commission on Human Rights, was replaced by the United Nations Human Rights Council in 2006. 100% correct, nothing wrong with it. The fourth statement, the UNCHR had the authority to enforce human rights treaties and impose sanctions on member states. This is totally incorrect. It has the authority to enforce human rights treaties, but it cannot impose sanctions on its member countries. It is not under its jurisdiction. So for the question number 1, the fourth statement is incorrect, which makes statement 1, statement 2 and statement 3 correct for this question. From the code given below, the correct option would be option C. The very purpose of this question is, to get you should get the idea about these about the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. We discussed about the article about human rights violation. So this organization becomes very much important for your preparation now. So the purpose, I think the purpose is fulfilled here, and I think you had understood the topic itself. Our aim is not to dive deep into the article which was in the newspaper, but what our aim is to frame a question which can be formed for you. So this is the question which can be formed in this way. The UPSC can form a question from this article. In this way you can use this article in preparing for your prelims examination. Now let's move to another article. It is as the name suggests, it says power play. It is about the hydroelectric power plants in Tista River, especially in the Sikkim region. We had seen in yesterday we also discussed about there was a landslide in that region which damaged a building of the hydroelectric power plant. It damaged a building of that, but there was least impact of that landslide. Nobody died, everybody was saved, so least damage was done. But we often see, there are huge catastrophes happening in this river from last 3 years. So what is the reason for that? First we have to understand the reason is the terrain in which these hydropower plants are situated. The region is the terrain of the Himalayas. About Himalayas, there is a fact that they are still growing. There is still movement of the land in that region. That land is very much available for seismicity. That land is very much free for earthquakes. So it becomes very much fragile. It is very much fragile land. And the velocity, as the rivers are coming from the high altitudes, the velocity of this Tisa river is very fast, and that is the reason why there are so many hydroelectric power plants located in this region. If you will look at the map of the Sikkim, you will find hundreds of hydroelectric power plants either developed or under process, under which are about to develop in this region. So there are many hydroelectric power plants which are to be developed in this region, and but unfortunately this region is very much prone to glacial lake bursts, this region is very much prone to floods. This region is very much prone to the seismicity because of the terrain of the Himalayas. And with respect to this, we should know that while designing, the designers of these power plants should take few things into their consideration. While designing these power plants, they should first take the environmental impact assessment. It should be carried out very precisely. Second, there should be the future cost. What would be the future cost needs? What can be the impact of the floods, and that future cost should be very, very much considered while designing these power plants. And also there should be very well avoidance of geologically seismic zones. These zones which are very much available for earthquakes, they should be avoided before planning to develop these hydroelectric power plants. This was in a nutshell about this article. Now let us see how the examiner can form a question on this article. If right now, if the examiner is reading this newspaper and he looks at this article, he can form various types of questions on this article. He can form about the Sikkim region itself, what are the neighboring states to that. He can form a question on power plants itself. He can form a question on Tista river. He can form a question on Himalayas terrain. Now there were different ways by which a question can be formed. I formed a question on Teesta River itself, because I think the distribution of Teesta River is very much important for your preparation. So let's look at the question which we had formed from this. Here the question says, which of the following statements regarding the distribution of Teesta River's water are correct? First, the Teesta River originates the Indian state of Sikkim and flows into Bangladesh. 100% correct. Nothing wrong with this statement. Second, the Teesta River's water distribution is governed by a bilateral agreement between India and Nepal. This is totally absurd statement, because if this water goes into the Bangladesh, I don't know what Nepal has to do with it. So this is totally incorrect statement. Third, the Teesta River has been a subject of water sharing negotiations primarily between India and Bangladesh. 100% correct. Fourth, the Teesta River flows through the Indian states of West Bengal. This is correct. And Assam. This is incorrect. It does not flow through Assam. It only flows through West Bengal before entering Bangladesh. So it makes the fourth statement incorrect. So for the question number 2, the correct statements are statement 1, statement 3, statement 1 and 3. Yeah. So for the question number 2, the correct statements are statement 1 and 3. And from the code given below, the correct option would be option A. So with this, I hope you had understood the topic. I hope you got the nutshell of the article itself, and you are very much aware how the question can be asked from the Teesta, from this article, and this is one of the way a question can be asked from this article. Now let's move to the next article which was in the news. It is about the imports weaken Indian pharma. If you would have read your if you would have read 2024-25 budget, you would have come across few very interesting announcements made by the government. There were huge customs duties were waived off, approximately 10 to 12% for certain medicines there, so that they will become cost effective for the Indians, for us. But unfortunately, according to the writer of this article, he finds out that those the customs duty which were waived off for medicines or other medicines, this has a huge impact on our pharma industry in India itself. What is the reason? Why he is saying that? Because if you will reduce those customs duty, if you will make the imports cheaper, it will definitely destroy the domestic industry, and also this will lead to the market monopoly, because there are patents with respect to the medicine and they are highly respected. When there are patents, it is the it takes some time to develop such medicines until that patent is working. So it leads to the market monopoly of those medicines which were imported, and it will not allow, or it will definitely damage the domestic market. It will definitely damage the domestic generic medicine which we are known for. It will definitely damage the domestic pharma industry. So this was the concern raised by the writer in this article. And he also says that in our country, where poverty is the norm, where at max 48, at minimum 48% out of pocket expenditure for a normal human being is on the medicines itself. So it makes it very much difficult for him have the alternate choices, because it will definitely, this importing of these medicines will definitely damage the domestic market. So but here in this article we have to discuss about these sections of the Patent Act, especially section 83 of the Patent Act. Why is this important? This is important for your preparation. This is important for, it can become important for your mains writing, and also a direct question could be asked, as right now it is in the newspaper. They may, who knows, UPSC may ask you direct question from this portion. Now for our for being on the safer side, we should know that what is this section 83 of the Patent Act. This section 83 of the Patent Act, it grants foreign manufacturer, it encourages them to it encourages investors that they should invest and invent such they should invest and manufacture such medicines it encourages them to manufacture such medicines. And also it also matlab ki this article, this section 83 of the patent act, it especially says that the commercial scale there should be, it should not promote the market monopoly, it should not enjoy the market monopoly. So section 83 of the patent act is very much important with respect to the market monopoly. And also we have section 100 of the patent act. It says patents granted do not in any way prohibit central government in taking measures to protect public health. If there is a patent granted with respect to any medicine, and if there are concerns with, if there are if there is rising demand of that medicine, then central government can give licenses to the domestic manufacturers, and they can form that medicine. And if the original medicine has the patent, but still the central government can give the license to the domestic manufacturers. So this is mentioned in the section 100 of the patent act. And let's repeat what this section is about. Patents, section 100, patents granted do not in any way prohibit central government in taking measures to protect public health. Under this section, Indian government can generate licenses for any domestic manufacturers to manufacture the drug at the lower cost. And also we should know that India is known for its generic medicines. These are the medicines which are made under for example, there is a brand there is some medicine with some brand. To make the copy of that, these generic medicines are made with the exact chemical composition. These India is known for these generic medicines, and we export these generic medicines to different countries, especially in Africa. So this importing these when we import certain drugs, it will definitely, according to the article, weaken our domestic industry. So this was in a nutshell about the article mentioned in the newspaper. Now let's see how the question can be formed from this article. I had formed on the generic medicine. Let's see what the question is. Here the question says, which of the following best describes a key characteristic of generic drugs? Statement A, they are always sold at higher prices than their brand name counterparts. Totally incorrect. There is no need of that. If they are sold at higher prices, then why would the country go for the generic medicines? They are actually sold at very lower prices than their brand name counterparts. B, they must have the same chemical composition as the original brand name drug, but may differ in appearance. 100% correct. Option B is correct. Option C, they are required to undergo new chemical trials to gain approval. No, there is no such need for the new chemical trials to gain approval. So option C is also incorrect. Option D, they contain different active ingredients compared to the original brand name drugs. No, there are no different active ingredients compared to the original brand name drugs. So in the question number 3, the statement 1, statement C, and statement D are incorrect, which makes the only correct statement in question number 3, that is option B. They must have the same chemical composition as the original brand name drug, but may differ in appearance. Now moving to the another article, it says SC to examine need for environmental regulators. In our country there are different environmental regulators. There are different bodies which are working differently, which are working on their own. There is no interconnection. For example, we have a central pollution control board, we have different tribunals. They are not interconnected, they are working in their own domains. And because of that, they are the working of those institutions is not up to the mark. According to the article, it raises the question, what if there is a need for the government to bring all those organizations into one umbrella, to form one environmental regulator under which all those organizations would come? But there are some concerns raised by the article 2 that it may give rise to it may end up this organization, if there would be brought in such a regulator, such organization which would bring in all the organizations into umbrella, this may end up being this may end up being another, this may end up being just another body. Its working may be also reduced, its impact may be also reduced, it may fall under the traps of the bureaucracy. So these are some concerns with respect to the, with respect to this article. The article itself says, as SC is as SC examines, exim as SC is going to discuss, SC is going to discuss about, as Supreme Court is going to examine the need for environmental regulators, and these are the concerns which were raised by this article. So with respect to this, here there is no direct question which can be framed for your prelims. Yeah, a question on Supreme Court's authority can be framed, but we will discuss them separately when we will reach the Supreme Courts, when we will reach the Indian judiciary in our static portion. But here, what kind of question can be formed? Let us see in the next slide. Here the question says, which of the following statements about the Central Pollution Control Board in India are correct? By reading this article, this Central Pollution Control Board becomes important for you, because there was a mention of it, and we don't know how examiner sees the article itself. He can form a question on it. Now let us have a look at the Central Pollution Control Board. First statement, the CPCB was established under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1974, 100% correct. Second, the CPCB is responsible for the enforcement of environmental laws related to air, water and soil pollution, 100% correct. Third, the CPCB operates as an advisory body to state pollution control boards and has the authority to issue fines directly. This is very much, incorrect. It cannot authorize fines directly. So it advises the state pollution control board, but it cannot authorize the fines directly. So statement 3 is incorrect. Looking at the statement 4, the CPCB's headquarters is located in Mumbai. No, it is located in Delhi. So for the question number 4, the correct statements are statement 1 and statement 2, and from the option given below, the correct option would be option A. Now moving on to the another article, it talks about the rapid e-commerce growth could hit millions of retail stores and jobs. This was a discussion made by a minister in our country. He discussed about it. He raised various concerns with respect to the rapid e-commerce growth. He raised concerns for the local shops, local retail stores and the jobs, the jobs they had created. From the recent times we have seen there is a rapid rise of e-commerce. For example, Amazon is growing, Flipkart and other different organizations are growing very fast, very, they are going very rapidly, and even though it has generated new jobs, but at the same time it is worst impact on the retail stores and the jobs they had created. For example, if we will go back 10 years, we will see recharge shops, we will see smartphone shops were available all around our country, all around our streets. But unfortunately, because of the rise of the e-commerce, those shops had vanished at all. We hardly see any recharge shop available nearby us, because we are doing that by our own. We hardly see any hardware shops nearby us. Even we hardly see any clothing shops nearby us, because we are very much dependent on e-commerce. So the minister, he raises some concerns with respect to this. He said that it has created joblessness in our country at the local level. Even though it has created some jobs, but at the same time it has created some joblessness. Many people had lost a job because of the rise of the e-commerce. So with respect to this article, let us see what question can be for. Here the question says, which of the following factors has contributed significantly to the growth of e-commerce in India? So first statement, increased internet penetration and smartphone usage, 100% correct. Because of the internet penetration and smartphone usage, the rise of e-commerce in our country. Second, the introduction of the goods and service tax, which simplified tax compliance, 100% correct, nothing wrong with this. Third, the implementation of strict regulations on online payment system. These strict regulations would in fact reduce the rise of the e-commerce, rather than it will help in again it will help in the growth of e-commerce. So statement 3 is incorrect. Statement 4, government subsidies exclusively for brick and mortar retail stores. This is totally incorrect. If the if the government subsidies are given to the brick and mortar retail stores, how will it impact the growth of the, how will it help in the growth of e-commerce? This is totally absurd statement. So for the question number 5, only the statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and from the code given below the correct option would be option A. Now moving forward to the last article of today's discussion, with respect to the current affairs, it is about the earth whistles when the lightning strikes. You know about lightning, there are few facts which we should know. These are the clouds which develop the charges, they start to move, and because of that the lightning happens because of the interaction of these charges. This happens particularly in the lower latitudes. The charge, you know usually what happens, the charge induced lightning tries to escape into earth's magnetosphere. We should know that earth has the magnet. Earth acts as a magnet, as a bar magnet, and it has the magnetic field all around it. And these charges tries to escape into the earth's magnetosphere, in the earth's magnetic field. And when it enters into the earth's magnetosphere, so there we see the lightning happening. There it interacts with, and we see the lightning happening. We see how these charged particles start moving from north pole to the south pole with the movement of the magnetic flares. So with that the charges move. And also with respect to that, we came to know with respect to this article about the Van Allen radiation belt. So about Van Allen radiation belt we will learn in the question in the next slide. Here the question says, which of the following statements about the Van Allen radiation belt are correct? First, the Van Allen radiation belts are composed of charged particles trapped by the Earth's magnetic field. 100% correct. They are composed of charged particles. It becomes, when there is any space travel, it becomes very much important for this scientists to understand this Van Allen radiation belt. They have to escape this. They have to, modify their speeds. So with respect to it, so it becomes very much important. So what is Van Allen radiation belt? They are composed of charged particles trapped by the Earth's magnetic field. First statement is 100% correct. Looking at the second statement, it says the belts are located between the Earth and the Moon. It is totally incorrect. The radiation belts are not located between the Earth and the Moon, but they are located within the Earth's magnetosphere. So statement 2 is incorrect. Statement 3, the Van Allen radiation belts were discovered in the 1950s by a satellite mission. 100% correct. It was discovered by the American satellite mission in 1950s. Statement 4, the radiation belt plays a crucial role in protecting the Earth from solar and cosmic radiation. 100% correct. So for the question with respect to the Van Allen radiation belt, the correct statements are statement 1, statement 3, and statement 4. And from the options given below, the correct option would be option D. With this, we complete our today's discussion with respect to the current affairs and with respect to the questions which can be framed from the current affairs. Now let's move towards the stat question. Here, in our previous classes we had discussed about the Regulation Act of 1773, in which we understood that it was the first step taken by the British government to control and regulate the affairs of the East India Company in India. Then after that, we saw that in Regulation Act of 1773, the government, the British East India Company, it introduced the Supreme Court in the West Bengal, in Kolkata. After that, we saw there were few very much loopholes in the Regulation Act of 1773, so that there was a need of the amendment, and the amendment was brought in, amending Act of 1781, which was also known as the Act of Settlement. We saw that how there were different amendments brought in this act. How Governor General and the Council from the jurisdiction, and Governor General and the Council were exempted from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. How the servants of the company, they were exempted from the Supreme Court. And also zamindars, landlords, and farmers were excluded from the Supreme Court jurisdiction. So we discussed it in the regulation in the amending Act of 1781. So, but there were very much loopholes with the governance of the country, with the governance, and there were huge loopholes with the control, with the governance of the British India. There were loopholes with respect to the control over the East India Company. For that, there was a need of the another act, and with respect to that, the William Pitt, who was then Prime Minister of the Great Britain, he introduced the British India Act of 1784 in the Parliament, and these are here we have to discuss about the British India Act of 1784. What were the key features of this act? First, we should know that this act, the British India Act of 1784, it distinguished between commercial and political functioning of the company. This was its main feature. It distinguished between the commercial and political functioning of the company. How it distinguished between the commercial and political functioning? Distinguished between political functioning and commercial functioning of the company? Let us have a look. It allowed the court of directors to manage the commercial affairs. So for the court of directors, the commercial affairs were given, and also it created a new body called the Board of Control. So this act created the new body, the Board of Control, which consisted of six members. It has to manage the political affairs of the company. So it differentiated the commercial and political affairs. For board of the director, for the court of the directors, they have to manage the commercial affairs, and and political affairs would be managed by the Board of the Control. So by this, it directly established a system of double government in India. So it established the system of double government in India. It also had some important provisions. It empowered the Board of Control to supervise and direct all operations of the civil and military government or revenue of the British possessions in India. It empowered the Board of Control to supervise all to supervise and direct all operations of the civil and military government or revenues of the British possessions in India. How many British possessions were in India? They were the possessions of the East India Company. So it directly named the possessions. It what it said. It named the company's territories in India were first time called British possessions in India as per this act. So it showed it gradually increased its control over the company. It gradually increased its control in the India itself, over the territories of the company itself. Also, in this act, the British government was given the supreme control over the company's affairs and its administration in India. So this act gave the supreme control of the British government over the company's affairs and its administration in India. So this was one of the steps in which the British tried to have its control over the company and its control over the Indian territories. So that's why this act becomes very much important for your preparation. So let's have a recap on it. What were the key features of it? It distinguished between commercial and political functioning of the company. It created a new body called the Board of Control, which has to manage the political affairs, and the commercial affairs were managed by the court of directors. So by this it established a system of double government. It empowered the Board of Control to supervise and direct all operations of the civil and military government or revenues of the British possessions in India. So by this it named the company's territories in India. It called the company's territories in India were first time called British possessions in India. And also we should know that British government was given the supreme control over the company's affairs and its administration in India. So this was about the British India Act of 1784. These were some key features which are very much necessary for you to understand. These are mentioned in the Lakshmi Kant book itself. Now let us see how a question can be formed from this. There are different ways the questions can be formed on this. Let us see how I had formed a question on this. The question says, which of the following statements regarding the British India Act of 1784 are correct? The first statement, the Pitt India Act was introduced to rectify the administrative inefficiencies of the East India Company and to establish more British control over Indian territories. 100% correct. This was the main purpose of this Pitt India Act. Second, the Act established a board of control to oversee the administration of British territories in India. 100% true. It established the board of control. Third, the Act allowed the East India Company to continue its trade activities without restrictions. No, it is incorrect because some of the restrictions, the Act did impose restrictions on the East India Company's trade activities. It did not allow unrestricted trade. So there were some restrictions with respect to the trade on East India Company. So for the question here with respect to the British India Act of 1784, the correct statements are statement 1 and statement 2. So with this we complete the static portion also. Now, as every day we discuss some previous year questions, the purpose of that is so it will help you revise you, it will help you give the idea how the questions could be framed from your for you, how the questions are framed in the exam, and what can be the approach which you should have while solving those questions. Now let's look at the previous questions. Here the first question with the question says, with reference to the entry of European powers into India, which one of the following statements is not correct? So we have to find out the incorrect statement in it. The first statement, the Portuguese captured Goa in 1499. This is totally incorrect because they captured Goa in 1510. So first statement is incorrect. Let's have a look at the second statement. The English opened their first factory in South India at Mozilipatnam. 100% correct. Third, in a statement in Eastern India, the English company opened its first factory in Orissa in 1633. Correct. Fourth, under the leadership of Dupleix, the French occupied Madras in 1746. 100% correct. So for the question number 1 with respect to the previous year questions, the incorrect option is that the Portuguese captured Goa in 1949. No, they captured Goa in 1510. So this is the correct option for this, as we have to find out the incorrect option in it. Now moving to the second question, it says, in India, among the following locations, the Dutch established their earliest factory at. So here with respect to the Dutch, where they had established their earliest factory, was it Surat? No. Was it Cochin? No. Was it Kasim Bazar? No. It was definitely Pulicat. Before Pulicat, they had established their factory at Mozilipatnam, but here though no option with respect to the Mozilipatnam is given, so the correct option would be with respect to this question, the Pulicat. There the Dutch, they established their earliest factory. Now moving to the last question of today's discussion, it says, the aim of the education as stated by the Woods Dispatch of 1854 was. What was the aim of the education as stated by the Woods Dispatch of 1854? First statement, the creation of employment opportunities for native Indians. They least care about it. So even if you have the basic knowledge, you will mark it incorrect. Second, the spread of Western culture. This is very much tricky if you don't have the proper information. Most often you can mark this the correct option, but unfortunately this is very much incorrect. It was not the aim of the Woods Dispatch of 1854. Third, the promotion of literacy among the people using English medium. No, that was not the concern. Fourth, the introduction of scientific research and nationalism in the traditional Indian education. This is the correct option with respect to the question related to the Woods Dispatch of 1854. Its aim was to introduce. His aim was the introduction of scientific research and nationalism in the traditional Indian education. So with this, we complete today's discussion. I hope you would like the video. I hope you would share it with your friends, and I hope you will definitely subscribe the channel. And please do write in the comments what are the initiatives we should bring in, what are the changes we should bring in so that we can help you the most. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you very much.